than 30 minutes. Now, we'd like to invite our last speaker, who is Professor Bipin Kumar Singh. So I'd like to introduce Professor Singh to our participants. Professor Singh, he will deliver his speech on folklore in the context of culture and literature. Professor Singh, he has more than 13 years of teaching experience and has completed UGC major research projects. And he has also the experience of working as visiting professor at Royal University of Bhutan. Professor Singh has published 5 books at national and international levels and has published more than 40 research papers. He has worked as chief editor of the journal, namely Journal of Tribal, Folk, and Subaltern Studies, which is a very reputed journal. It's a blind peer-reviewed international referred research journal. So now I'd like to request Professor Bipin Kumar Singh to kindly deliver his speech. Now it is over to you, Professor Singh.
Thank you, sir. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you are absolutely audible.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir. First of all, I would like to wish you all a very good evening. And I would like to congratulate the entire organizing team, Dr. B.C. Nyog, Dr. DJ Barua, Dr. Manas Pritam Barua, and the whole team. And I thank you all for giving me an opportunity to share my views over here. Really, it was pleasure to listen to my first two speakers, Professor Bhagwat sir and Dr. Panchanand Dalai. I could not meet Bhagwat sir before, and nor did I get any chance to listen to him earlier. But today I got and I listened to him. Really, it was pleasure, very pleasure and honor to me to listen to him. Really, sir, thank you so much, and I am really benefited. And Panchanand sir, perhaps you don't remember, but I have met you at BHU, and but it was for a very short span of time. So perhaps I could not make any space new memories, but I remember you well. As far as my turn and talk is concerned, really my name, alphabetical order of my name allows me to speak at the end when all are tired. And I'm given a chance to say something when whole the card is turned, then comes my turn. So thank you again, sir, for giving me a very separate topic. I have to speak on this folklore in context of literature and culture. Uh, Sir, as far as folklore studies are concerned, or folklore, culture, and literature, they are concerned, what I think, what I find is this: culture and literature, they both appear to be incomplete without folklore. Um, I would be bold enough to say, even no culture can exist without its folklore. If it ignores its folklore, folklore appears to act as its soul if it is a body. To give a very concrete example, if you organize a seminar or conference, even a webinar, we have the whole body. We have the superstructure, archetypal superstructure of a webinar or a seminar conference. We have the organizing team, we have the whole setup, everything we have, the whole superstructure we have. But if you don't have speakers, if you don't have delegates, if you don't have the research scholars, presenters, then perhaps I doubt the building of any webinar or seminar will stand. No, it will collapse. Similarly, any culture will collapse if it is devoid of its folklore. What folklore is and how it uh, turns out to be so crucial, so significant in culture or in literature. I from almost 11 years, I worked in Amarkantak University, and there I got a chance to live amongst the tribes. And the major project, research project that I did is on Vegas and on their folklore. And in the course of my project, I could document approximately more than 1,000 literary pieces, folklore pieces of the Vegas. And perhaps it was a maiden attempt to do from a literary perspective. Earlier, some scholars had done. So my examples will be from the Baga tribe, their folklore, tribal folklore, because I got much exposure to them, to tribal folklore. And what I could observe while my work is this: folklore sustains, it prevails in each and every breath of people, Bagas, tribes, and every folk. If we dreams, then it is folklore. If we listens or just tells a story, it's folklore. If we have fun, jokes, break jokes, then it's nothing folklore. If you go to mantras and if you go to riddles for the sake of fun, again this comes under the umbrella of folklore. If it is matter of an occasion of some fairs and some festivals or some other occasion of life cycle, death, birth, and other occasions, again it comes under banner of folklore. Everywhere, every time, it's folklore which is under practice, which they give importance. And what I could think and what I observed um, through the experiences that I had with them, with the tribal people, uh, it's this: they each and every breath is made of the folk songs, and they live it. We read folklores, we try to understand folklores, but they feel it. And it's my appeal, and we should also make an attempt to feel that folklore in our life. We should not try to understand it, try to read it. No. If culture, any culture is part of a heritage, cultural heritage that we read, that we have read, we have understood, then it is part of heritage, then I think it is only the heritage because of by the virtue of its folklore. As much rich and richer the folklore would be, that much richer, great its culture would be. For example, again I said that I would give examples from the Vegas. I can't quote much of their lines because I'm stuck in at my home, and my university is just under lockdown in Bihar, so I'm unable to go over there, and I don't have my books and other reading materials. So I will quote instances, but can't quote the exact lines, folklore lines. There, what happens when a Baiga goes to field to work, when it goes to jungles to cut woods or pluck leaves, then they sing. And what they sing is called Dadaria song. Though this is Dadaria song, but it is called one bhajan. It's kind of worship to them. And there, this Dadaria song is we can say this is a kind of chat to them, a type of conversation to them. They talk in songs, very strange practice. They are talking in songs. They are singing while through their songs they are having conversation. They are talking to them with each other, with their colleagues. If they have other experiences, they are going to some fairs and festivals. If they are in celebratory mood, again they sing folk folk songs. And what happens if it is a it is an occasion? Even there are instances of karma songs, Daria songs, at the time of someone's death. There are sad songs, and they have a very rich heritage called Bilma songs, the Daria songs, Dinasua songs, and so the huge variety they have. Even karma itself is divided in six categories. So on each and every occasion, on each and every turn of life, they sing, they enjoy their life. Means they depend on their folklore. As far as folk tales are concerned, because I told that if it comes to some tales, even then folklore comes. Sorry. So what happens? They cannot survive without folk songs, without folklore. Again, if I quote um, just instance, what happens if beggars a beggar? I'm just giving some pictorial beauty which gives the instances of their life, or what life they live, and where they sing, what they sing. A beggar girl who goes to jungle to pluck some leaves. There occasionally she happened to um, have the glimpse of some multicolored flowers. She made the ornaments out of these flowers, and she decorates herself. And now she is getting her glimpse, her shadow, her image through the shadow, through the sunbeam. That's there. So what's important from a literary point of view? It is, if we read Kalidas, if we read Shakespeare, what find we have the instances, literary instances of viewing one's image in water, how beautiful one looks, but we don't have an image of a literary instances of looking one's image, one's beauty through the one's shadow. But in folklores we have. So we have very rare instances, literary instances, which should not be ignored. We should pay attention to them. Another example I would like to quote, all of us know, every student of literature is know that Wordsworth is regarded as worshipper of nature, poet of nature, a great environmentalist. Only on the ground of few poems that he wrote. I'm not criticizing Wordsworth. I'm one of his lovers. But when it comes to compare Wordsworth songs with that of Bag of folk songs, then a huge difference appears. And what is this difference? I came across to a poem. The occasion is there is a marriage in a Baga family, and the parents of that Baga boy and Baga girl, they are worshipping each and every aspect of nature. They are inviting people, they are inviting they are name David, they are inviting each sun, moon, stars, rivers, each and every aspect of nature, inviting to participate in their marriage, in their festival, have feast with them, and bless the couple and their family, and then take a farewell with due respect. In Wordsworth songs, we miss that participation of nature. Wordsworth is a great pantheist. He could see the mysticism in nature. But this participation of nature as deities is missing in Wordsworth's poetry. Then what emerges? Folklore is as rich from literary point of view as the mainstream literatures are. And when it comes to compare with literature, then what I could feel, what I could sense is this: literature appears to be rootless if it is separated from folklore. The historicity of literature is maintained through folklore. Literature owes to folklore for some of its major themes, striking themes, capturing themes. It owes to folklore some of its forms. Form. In ballet, all of us know there is a dance form and song, strophe, anti-strophe, and echo. And in Baga folk songs, when I read and I came across, I realized they have also have a separate form, dance form, karma folk song, which is called Khadgaya Karma and Karma dance form, where they sing and dances together in three ways. One is strophe, one is anti-strophe, and the one is pole. While singing, they dance from left to right, clockwise and anti-clockwise, and one song they sing while dancing and but standing at one place. Pole. I doubt that ballad form of dance and this karma form of dance, there would have been any confluence or meeting between the two people, two cultures, but they are. One could occupy the international platform, academic platforms, but one is still struggling for its survival. Why? This is there may be certain reasons. My purpose is not to focus on those reasons. My purpose is just to highlight, to foreground what folklore has in itself, what is hidden in folklore, and what happens. Literature owes many things. It look forwards towards folklore for many of its themes and forms and even techniques. For example, we can say in Bollywood, many more folk songs they became super hit. Why? Because they are folklore, folk songs. Still, they attract us. They capture our eyes and ears. So, literature appears to be without rootless, without folklore, and culture appears to be meaningless in essence, without folklore. Because folklore not only gives the reflection of its culture, no, apart from being a reflection of its culture, it also appears at the same time, appears to make an attempt to shade it's the culture of which it is part. It appears to give a shape to the culture. If it does not construct the culture, because somewhere this is intermingled, interrelated, they are a part of it. But what happens, it would be a bit unfair to say, as we said, literature is the part of culture, oh sorry, product of culture. But as far as I think, it would be a bit unfair to say folklore is the product of its culture. No, folklore, it shapes culture, it beautifies culture, it never depends on culture. Even in a sense, a culture appears to depend on its folklore. For example, all of us, we all from since our childhood, we have been listening to many stories by our great grandparents, by our grandparents. And what are those stories? These stories are initially these stories are about animals, about birds, about jungles, about country or rural side. And what are the morale of the stories? What are the crux of the stories? Passing certain information, from passing certain um, we say mindsets, psyche, from generation to generation. So in a way, by the technique of passing, so folktale appears to act as a technique of culture or folklore technique are passing information from generation to generation without acknowledging, without realizing. For example, if we say in folklore, folk tales, we have been listening there are some powerful animals, fancy animals, animals with masculine qualities like lions, jackals, elephants, many. So what we appear to know, animals, they are forcing some kings and queens are forcing some girls to marry with them, to marry them. In many of folk tales, we have been told that a girl is being married with an animal. It may be a lion, it may be a tiger, it may be a bear or monkey. Then, but we could never listen. At least I can remember, I could never listen a boy getting married with a female animal. In any folk tales, there is no such story, no such information. Then what is important? Important fact is this: this is a type of shaping one's psyche. There may be it may have a feminist relevance, feminist connotation, but it is trying to shape the psyche of the younger generation. If the image of portrayal is pornographic, it goes against the better interest of betterment of sorry women, females. Then it is also it may have just a patriarchal stress in it, of patriarchal stress of what? Patriarchal attempt to shape one's psyche, to shape one's mindset, and to prepare the younger generation to act and react and think in a particular way. Who's doing this? Folklore is doing. This folk tradition is doing this thing. We can get examples of getting of a girl getting married with a wild animal, with a beast, but we cannot get an example of a boy, a human boy, a man getting married with a female animal in any stories. Then what? Which is the mind that is working behind these stories, folk tales, folklores? Maybe masculine, it may be feminine. My question is not masculine or femininity, patriarchy and feminism. No, what I think, it is acting as a technique. It is acting as a tool to shape our sensibility, to shape our psyche. It is at the same time, it is also trying to govern and control our reactions, human behaviors. And this human behavior, human reactions become the part of our culture. This is what we call culture. And this culture gets reflected in various way, um, um, in various way and in various lights, with various connotations, with various purposes in literature and literary performances. So as far as I think, folklore should be given equal importance as we give literature and culture, because theorists, Panchanans are told, a number of theorists, cultural theorists, they are engaged in working, engaged and engrossed in working on cultural theories, various aspects. No aspect is left. Sir also talked of boundaries. We are working on special theories and other. But at the same time, if we look towards our folklore, then I think we have better prospect than the other. Western theories, they are giving and we are receiving, we are taking, but we have our own treasure. We have our own heritage. And I can say, I can boldly say, that no treasure can surpass than our folklore. It gives it promises a lot. And at the same time, if you say folklore can be viewed because it reads society, it reads human behavior, it controls human behavior. At the same time, at the time of entertaining, at the time of giving amusement, what it does, folklore can be viewed as um, to provide a ground and a history to literature. Literature owes a lot for its forms, for its themes from folklore. And as far as culture is concerned, what happens? Um, Culture appears to be incomplete without folklore, and culture at the same time appears to adopt folklore as a tool and as a technique to control human behavior, human psyche, and at the same time to shape, to give a beautified, uh, well embellished shape of culture of society. It adopts folklore as a tool for these purposes. And again, what happens at the same time, ki folklore folklore becomes inseparable part of culture, working within it, beneath it, under currently, it's constantly working, giving and attempting to give a better shape to culture, to society. So my appeal and my concluding talk or sentence would be this: we should look forward to folklore for instilling, for we should say establishing our culture or literature in a better way, in a more strengthened way. And our folklore has this capacity, it has this power. So we should be respectful to our folklore. We should not ignore that. Oh, these are folk songs. They are just oral songs. No, they don't have any print or any written proof. Because if you are working on, suppose a researcher, PhD scholar is working on some folklore which is not documented, which is not published, which is not in print, then most of us even discourage those researches. How can you work on it? It's in a different language. It's in different Bagani, it's in Santali, it's in Chhattisgarhi or Gondi. No, if you are trying to work on Bagas or Santals or Gond, then their folklore should be in translation in English and they should be in print. So if they are not in print, then no research would be done. Then whose job is to document those folk pieces? If those young researchers are not doing, definitely it's our job. We have to work on it. So with these sentences, I again thank you all and thank you.
Uh,
Over to Manas sir.
Thank you, Professor Vipin Kumar Singh. As you said that as alphabetically you were late towards the end, but we can say that we left you towards the end because we believe that all well that ends well. Therefore, we left you towards the end. Now we are coming to the question and answer session. Uh, we have received lots of questions, but unfortunately, we can't able to address all the questions. We'll